I just have to sit back and think of how naive I was, personally. You know, my mid-years period of time through college, I finally decided I think maybe that's what I'd like to do. So I got involved. I really, if I'm going to do this, I want to work for International Harvester. And Dad never told me much of anything I needed to do, but he kind of directed me, or kind of hinted at certain things. And the only thing I can say is, as an example, I go to work for International Harvester. I wanted that job. I was accepted, and I went to work. And the guy went through Jim Ingalls, I think, went through the whole presentation product on presentation about what my job was and everything. And then at the end, he says, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How much am I making?" At that point, he busted out laughing, because obviously it was really not on my radar at all. I really didn't. I mean, that's the job I wanted, but I look back on that and I think, my goodness. So anyway, I don't know. That doesn't play into anything here, but I thought that
one thing I think our business has incorporated over the years. I don't know much about the last few years, but Floyd Birkey was a very conservative person.
Yeah.
And he was a great teacher to me, working side by side with him. And so I became a very conservative person. And in some ways it was good, but there are other times that maybe we'll do some of these expansions. We would have been better if we would have taken on some
risk
back in the 60s and 70s. But anyhow, I know the first year when I went into business, I went to my local banker over here at Ogden, and I told him I wanted to go into business and so forth and so on. And he said, "Well, I'll loan you the money, but you really probably ought to go up to Rantoul and talk to Paul up there at the bank of Rantoul, because that's who you're going to be dealing with." And but he said, "He won't loan you the money, I will." So I went into the bank in Rantoul and went through the numbers, and everything was fine, and set up the note, and I was in business. However, at the end of the first year, I had a payment due on my note. And there wasn't enough extra money in the till. I had 3 little kids. Mom worked night shift down at the hospital, and we struggled for a couple of years. It was really tough, and so I think if anybody going in has to realize that there's not a pot of tea up here on the counter. That it's pretty tough, and luckily we got through that year. And then I had another friend of mine who was going to sell out his dealer or buy a dealership. And he called me, and he lived in Indianapolis at the time. He says, "Meet me over at the Turkey Run."
Oh.
And on Sunday morning, have a picnic. And he had a chance to buy into a dealership, and they wanted to know if it was good, bad, or what he should do. And of course, at that point, I had just gone through the first year, and I wondered maybe I'd make a mistake, but we put in a lot of hours. We done a lot of stuff I would have had to do, but we did it. And then all of a sudden it came about that we were able to make our payments and so forth. But it's tough, because you're going to have these cycles. And that was '68, I think it was. It was kind of a bum year for us.
I guess one thing I wish I knew a little more was when I come in the door, how resistant people are to change. I've been in an organization that was constantly changing and growing, working in a public accounting, working in the corporate world, and it was just a state of constant change. And when I came in, there was a lot of things that really needed to change pretty quickly, given the growth that we'd had. And I really wish I'd known what I was going to be in for, as far as just the resistance and the reluctance to think differently and do different things. And yet, over the years, I think that's what's made Birkey successful, is that we've changed with the times, and we have done a good job of trying to stay ahead of the market and making those adjustments. But it was really, really a challenge, and it took a while for our organization to kind of get into that mode that any kind of growing organization has to be willing to deal with change and the uncomfortable situation that puts you in when you change. As far as what I pass on, I mean, I've been in that mode now for the last year and a half with Brady as he has succeeded me. There's a lot of stress that goes, we all had stress in our position because the buck kind of stops with you. And I know it weighed heavy on each of us that, we're responsible for the well-being of, today it's 500 families. And that's a big load to carry as the CEO of the organization. And so you got to find some ways to blow off steam. You need to have somebody that you can talk to about it. And most of the time, that's not one of your peers or somebody at the company. You've got to find an outlet for that, and you've got to find some time to think. You can have your entire day consumed with meetings and interactions, some other things, but one of the things that you're paid to do and expected to do by the board when you're in this position of leading the company is how to step back, see what's going on, think about what's going on, and propose how do you help move the organization forward and get people around you to come with you. Yeah. And if you can get people that are around you to come with you, in the end, it makes it all worth it. But it's not easy.
We had a lot of challenges, and I think of one that as we grew ownership, as we brought in more partners, so to speak, corporate shareholders. Most of them came out of an environment where they were sole proprietors, or in a lot of ways had individual autonomy or whatever. But and I think to fit correctly within the structure of a multi-shareholder situation, they had to figure out how to subordinate to the board, and that was a concept that most of them didn't really understand. We had lived through that with our organization because we always had minority owners. We always had to kind of subordinate to what the will of the group was, and so that was a challenge for our group, I think, in the 90s to go through those changes. But obviously we did that and worked through that.